What I remember of this latter-day Greek tragedy has no doubt been colored by the observations and editorial input of an entire generation. That said, I believe the version I'm about to relate is as close to actual fact as possible, and since I'm the principal character in the tale, I'm hoping for a wee bit of latitude in the telling of it. Imagine the little town of Lombard, Illinois, in 1953. It's springtime, and the weather in the Lilac Village is right out of a Chamber of Commerce brochure. In a little white frame house a half mile from the center of town, an attractive and hard-working mom of four advises her littlest one, son Brian, age 3, that today is the day he's going to have a haircut. The idea weighs heavily on the toddler's young but insightful mind. He's been to the barber before, knows right where it is. Best of all, he knows what awaits any youngster who submits to the shearing without a fuss. The barber maintains a virtual treasure trove of sweets from which the cooperative may freely select. Hard candies, soft candies, some wrapped singly and some in pairs, and all of them indescribably available. Was it any wonder young Brian was eager to arrive early for his appointment? "I have errands to run," advised the young mother, Jean. She pointed to Brian's 3 older siblings. "Keep an eye on him." She then winked at her own mother, the diminutive Anna Hasdall. "I'll be home sometime after lunch. Do you have everything you need?" "Yeah, yeah," said the grandmother, her voice still tinged with the accent she bore with her from Norway a half-century earlier. "You go on. We'll be fine." When Jean left, Anna broke out the canasta cards and started dealing. Little Brian, who had yet to grasp the fundamentals of declaring meld or organizing the insane volume of cards required of the game, wandered out the front door. He wandered out to the front walk and turned toward town. He wandered down several blocks, in fact, until he came to the parallel rails known mysteriously to him as the L tracks. L was short for elevated, as in elevated train. One of those rails also provided the electric power to propel the trains. Doubtless many tales of fried, fricasseed, and/or parboiled passengers had filtered through to the young mother, and when she returned home to find her fledgling son missing, she just knew he'd gone to play on the tracks. She had only just begun to discuss the multiple failures of the 4 people charged with his safety when the phone rang. The man on the line identified himself as a barber. The barber, in fact, whom Jean had intended to employ that very afternoon. "I've got a young fella here who says he needs a haircut," the barber said. "Calls himself Brian." Jean inhaled slowly. How many L tracks had he crossed to reach town? How many times had he faced utter destruction? How many chances did the average 3-year-old have to escape the Grim Reaper? "Gah!" she said. Grandma, recognizing the stress, to say nothing of a dozen other emotions contained in Jean's monosyllabic response, extracted a hanky and waved it excitedly, perhaps in an effort to cool her daughter off. "Don't be too hard on him," she said. "It's my fault, not his. I'm so sorry." "I'll be right there," Jean told the barber. "Don't let him out of your sight." She hopped in her blue 1950 Plymouth and sped straight to the heart of town, where she double-parked on Main Street and marched into the barber's domain. Ignoring Brian's efforts to soft-sell his journey, Jean merely pointed to the car, one trembling finger covering her message as eloquently as any words. With her wayward son safely collected, she quickly returned home, having crossed the deadly tracks both ways in the process. There, in front of 4 witnesses, the eldest of whom wept profusely, she proceeded to paddle young Brian's behind until it achieved a dark rose color, not quite mauve, but close, a little more red. Understandably mortified, young Brian could only imagine what would have happened to him if he hadn't taken the initiative to do exactly as his mother had asked. Indeed, looking back on the incident with 50-plus years of added perspective, he can only conclude that this episode had a profound effect. and likely explains his dogged adherence to the principles of procrastination.